Hello and welcome to Roll for Topic, a roundtable discussion about topics related to running role-playing games. I'm Chris Salzman.
And I'm Andy Rao.
Andy, I'm now doing my second trip to the Dungeon Crawler Carl series, which I know you tried and bounced off of extremely hard, which is...
I did.
Totally fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the first time I read them, I have not read the most recent book. So I read them all. And then I decided as kind of preparation for reading the most recent one, I'm just going to go back and do them again. But I'm doing the audiobook this time. The narrator is really, really good. And I disagree strongly with a couple of the choices he's made for basically the two main characters who are like on screen for like the entire, entire book. Yeah. But I mean, it's good. It's growing on me a little bit, and that I'm now tolerating it as like, this is just what it is. But, I'm enjoying it again. I understand why people do not, might not connect with it, but it's a super fun book. I was trying to explain it to a coworker yesterday. I was like, no one's going to be reading this book in 100 years, right? It's not like, greatest literature of all time or anything like that, but it is very fun.
Yeah. Although, you should be careful of predictions like that, because some of the stuff we read today was not considered like great stuff at the time of its publication, right?
Yeah.
Like Dickens and stuff like that. And then, but it's simple, compelling popularity has made it stick around. Like, I think this way about like Stephen King, for example. Like, never going to read a Stephen King and be like, what a literary masterpiece that was.
Yeah.
However, it's like just really compelling. And I do think in 100 years we'll be reading it because people will not be able to stop reading it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. I've never thought about that. Yeah. I kind of wonder if like, if like D&D will be played in 100 years for the same reason, where it's like, well, there's just something there. Like, we'll just kind of keep playing that game, even though I'm sure the hobby will have evolved quite a bit in the next 100 years. Now,
my limited foray into the Dungeon Crawler Carl books suggested to me, is there like a huge amount of lore behind this? Like, is there a giant fan wiki that's many layers deep of lore and background stuff?
I'm sure there is. The thing that is not clear to me, and I have not dug into this at all, so forgive me, Denneman fans, but I don't fully get the sense that this was like I think he had like thought through a lot of stuff, but I don't know if he had like everything mapped out necessarily right from the beginning.
Yeah.
Right. Like and maybe he did. Maybe he had like this grandmaster plan, like there's going to be 10 books and this is what's going to happen in each book or whatever. But I get a sense a little bit that it's like the plot sort of like, as he needs stuff gets added to it.
Mm-hmm.
Which is not to say that it's bad. I think it's quite fun. Like I mentioned, quite fun. And I'm sure the wiki is very exhaustive. I know there are people that like have their own beloved characters that aren't like the main characters too in it. But yeah, it's fun. I mean, there is a tabletop game that is coming out. I think they just premiered it at Gen Con like a week ago as we're recording this or so.
Okay.
And a former, coworker friend of mine, he said he played it and it's actually very fun and kind of gets pretty close to the feel of what the books give you as well. Yeah. So I mean, there's just like, again, like if you're thinking about it from like a tabletop design perspective, like there's some really fun set pieces in that book. And I think that's where it excels very well, is like, hey, here's this crazy situation. How are, our main characters going to get out of it? Like, how are the players going to get out of this situation intact and alive? And like, that's most of the fun of the book is like, oh my goodness, like, how are they going to get out of this one? But the stakes keep increasing as the books go on. Yeah.
I do think this feels like the modern equivalent of like a new Sherlock Holmes story appearing every week in the paper, sort of thing, And I'm always intrigued when a book is inspired by like a TTRPG, like Dungeons and Dragons usually, and then it ends up inspiring a TTRPG to be built to like capture the experience of the book, which is an attempt to capture the experience of D&D. So it's just fascinating, and that's not bad. There's nothing dumb about that. I just find it very intriguing. Like, so what mechanical elements make it to that third or fourth level of interpretation? That's just very interesting to me. So I have no real interest in the Dungeon Crawler Carl TTRPG, But I do have some interest in seeing, like, so what is this game going to try and emulate, and can we trace it back to, like, running D&D in the late 70s or something, right? Which is probably where Dungeon Crawler Carl started. I don't know.
Yeah, it's that's interesting. I would be curious how the author would answer that question, because like I don't get the sense that there's like a need for him to like prove which edition is right. In it, right? I mean, like he references both Pathfinder and Dungeons and Dragons, right, in the book, right? So it is very fun. Like, to your point, it's like, it's this book that's not only sort of like a fantasy series, it's almost like urban fantasy in that it's based on Earth. Earth, at some point this thing happens, and then it becomes kind of a fantasy universe, but like, there's referencing stuff that happens kind of in our like contemporary time too, right? So it's like the main character Carl talks about, oh, this reminds me of a Pathfinder game I played, or this reminds me of playing D&D 20 years ago. Well, it's also like, this is like kind of in his world, this is like a real thing that's happening, but it feels like a game. Like, it is very like intertwined, and I think that to me is the most fascinating part about like the fact that this book has caught hold, and like I see like normal people, like normal looking people, like reading it out and about in the world. It's that like it is so coded as like a gamer, like a gamer book, right? Like, I mean, if this came out 30 years ago when we were reading nerdy stuff, it'd be like a Tor fantasy novel, right? You'd have like a hand painted cover, right? Like looking like fantasy art of like Carl and his cat Princess Donut on the cover, like fighting some beast or something like that. It's just like but it is crossed over enough that like I think it's just like, I don't know, like I guess like the language of tabletop has crossed over into modern day like vocabulary too, which is just it's very fascinating. And it also feels a little bit like there's part of me that's like oh hey, like that's my world, like why why are the jocks invading the the D&D world? But I mean, I think it's just like that's just part of culture now, right? It's just where we're at right now. Like,
by the way, I felt physical pain when you said he has some Pathfinder references, because I'm thinking like Pathfinder came out in what, like 2008 or something? That was like just 2 or 3 years ago, right?
No,
like,
unfortunately.
Well, it is fascinating. And in any sort of niche hobby, like it's interesting when the mainstream gets a hold of pieces of it and it becomes popular. Like, it's just always interesting to identify what are the things that the mainstream thought were worthwhile from this niche, right? Like, so you in the niche love all of it, but the mainstream loves 2 or 3 pieces of it. And what are those 2 or 3 pieces? That's an interesting and informative thing to think about, I think.
I think, and like, to be clear, I think Dinneman's a giant nerd, right? He'd probably have a lot of fun, like, coming on the podcast and stuff, like, he's too big for it. But like, I think, but I am curious, like, if you have someone who's maybe just like heard of D&D and is like, oh, I just want to read something on the airplane. Like, I've been hearing about this series, like I'll pick it up. Like, what about that appeals to them? And my guess is it's a lot of the, like, the human elements that are present in any tabletop game, right? Like, so you have some of those stuff that's like kind of transcends the mechanics. But I think also people just like the idea of like leveling up, right? Like, I do these series of actions, I kill these monsters, and then I get to be better in some way. Like, that feels very, very clean. Like, that's a power fantasy that I think everybody shares, of like, oh, like, wouldn't it be nice if like, I did these actions and then became permanently better? Like, like that'd be a really fun, a fun thing. And I think that sort of power fantasy, I think, appeals broadly to everybody when it comes down to it.
So I got to ask, is there a Dungeon Crawler Carl TV show in the works?
Oh, yeah.
If there's not, like, someone must have optioned it, right?
Yeah. I think it has been optioned. I know nothing else about it other than that there is one coming. I mean, it is right. I mean, I think he even started writing these serially, like, right? He has a Patreon that you can join and you can get access to chapters as they're coming out. I mean, the whole format of the book lends itself well, I think, too. Having a TV show. Like,
I would love to learn that, like, 10 books in and it's a big bestseller, he's still releasing early chapters on Patreon. That would make me so happy to learn.
I think he is. I mean, that's how I've got I got most of my copies of the ebooks is by joining his Patreon. Right?
Hey,
like
that's fantastic. All right.
Yeah. So I mean, he has some sort of I don't know. It's like getting into inside baseball about like publishing and stuff, but it's like it is very interesting to see a success story like this. I don't think anyone should count on this sort of thing happening to them if you're writing your own fantasy story. But I mean, like by all accounts, he's very smart about community engagement and community building and stuff too, right? So there's lots going for him. But yeah, I mean, you can join his Patreon and get updates about what his writing process is like. I mean, I do imagine like what if you could get that from, I don't know, like what if Tolkien back in the day had a Patreon too?
Yes,
yeah. It's like, I mean, it's a brave new world.
Yes, it really is. Yes, amazing. So hey, Chris, I have a topic for us to discuss today. I think we've touched on it in the past, but it kind of came and hit home for me this summer. So I thought I would toss it at you. And that question is, how do I get rid of all of my gaming stuff?
Oh, no.
Yeah. So not in a dramatic way, like I'm leaving the hobby.
Yeah.
But just so a little bit of background. So about me, like gaming stuff is pretty much my hobby. It's like where my hobby dollars go, right?
Yeah.
I don't have like yachts. I don't play golf, whatever. Yeah. Like, my hobby dollars go into buying TTRPGs.
Yeah.
And this has been the case for most of my adult life. So, and combine that, here's another thing to learn about me. I don't really get rid of stuff.
Oh.
Right?
Okay.
So I know people who like the second they're done watching a show or reading a book, they've sold it on Craigslist.
Yeah.
That is not me. So for various reasons, I almost game stuff is stuff I almost never get rid of. So what that means is I have a house full of game stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And over the years, it's like sometimes it's been board games that have been my interest. Sometimes it's been TTRPGs. Sometimes it's been war games and stuff. But I don't tend to get rid of it when I'm done with it. So it's all still here. And this summer had an experience that really made me start thinking about this in like an existential way.
Yeah.
This summer, my wife and I had the task of going to a relative's house and cleaning it out.
Yeah.
This was a relative. They had lived in a house in the Midwest for like 50 plus years. And they also never got rid of anything. They're not wealthy, so it's not full of like fancy, exciting stuff, but it is full of all of the stuff they accumulated. And that's like furniture, like a million, just like tchotchkes, I guess you might say, and just stuff accumulated. And I don't want to be dismissive about it at all, because that stuff and the keeping of it had held value to this relative. But coming in as a relative stranger to this and being assigned the task of like, okay, they're no longer living here and this house needs to get cleaned out. You need to preserve what's worth preserving and get rid of the rest. That turned out to be like a fairly overwhelming task. Right? And this is a house full of stuff. And here's where it kind of ties to my experience right now, or my situation. This house was full of stuff that was not valuable. It's not full of like, they're not wealthy people and they lived within their means. So the accumulated stuff, there's a lot of stuff, but it doesn't have no individual pieces worth more than like $45, right? So, but there's a lot of it, and a lot of it it's there and it was acquired because it has emotional significance of some sort, or it's tied to a period of the lives of these people. So going in and saying like, we can at max preserve like 1% of the stuff that's in this house. and the rest of it we're going to pay somebody to come in and like donate or throw in a dumpster, was a sobering experience for someone like me who is like a keeper of stuff. Right?
Yeah.
So that was a big experience, and I'm not going to go down. I'll try not to dwell on that too much. But I mean, I came back to my house thinking, I've got bookshelves of game stuff that I haven't gotten rid of. And I mean, I like to think of myself as middle-aged. You can
I won't
argue about
that at all.
You can argue about that however you want, but
yeah.
I'm a little ways away from my kids having to come in with a dumpster and throw all this crap into a dumpster to be put in the garbage.
Yeah.
So how do I get from where I am now, which is I have too much game stuff, to a place where my kids are not having to come in and just shovel this like garbage, which it is not, into a dumpster. So I wanted to bring that up for a couple of reasons. One, because you are somebody who I think from our interactions, I've gathered you are a little bit closer to the like, I'm done with this, it's going on Craigslist personality type than I am. I am the opposite of that.
Yeah.
I have stuff from junior high. I have game stuff from junior high, right?
Yeah.
It's all still here because I just never got rid of it. Now, I've gotten better in the last 5 or so years. I am now pretty good at not like acquiring new stuff, right? I am pretty good at applying the like, here's this new shiny Kickstarter. Will I actually use this at the table? Yes or no? I now have a pretty good set of like filters in place to keep this collection from getting much bigger, but it's too big. And I don't want my kids in 30 years to be throwing it in a dumpster. So what do I do between now and that moment? So just general reactions from you to what I just said.
Yeah. I think the first thing I want to say is like, I mean, it is great that you're thinking about this, right? Like we, my wife and I are also sort of going through this with a relative that has passed recently, where it's just an overwhelming task to even like think about like how to deal with this stuff. So, for listeners, I will say that like, you know, I've been to Andy's house. This is not like, you know, Andy isn't like, you know, drowning and stuff. Like, you know, everything is on shelves for the most part and things like that, right? This is not like Andy, you need professional help right now.
right.
Yeah. But it is interesting. I watched this YouTube video yesterday. There's this guy who like, honestly, like his YouTube channel I've seen every once in a while, and he's one of those guys who just sort of like reviews like little gadgets and tries to get you to buy them on Amazon. And for whatever reason, he posted this thing about like how he's been trying to get out of that trap. And like the question that he's been asking himself more recently when he wants to buy something is, what is the result that I want this thing to give me? Does that make sense? So, I mean, like, so the idea is, right, like, you know, if you're like, oh my goodness, I really need a brand new camera or a new game or something like that, like to not just be like, oh, this is shiny, I want this, like to ask yourself, like, what's the result that I'm trying to get here, right? Like the result of buying a new game is probably what you want is like, you're either like, oh, like I want to learn some cool new mechanics that this game designer came up with, right? Like this is the best way to do that. Or the result is, I really want to get together with these 4 friends that I haven't seen in a while. And like, this is the way that I feel like I can make that happen. Right. Like, so like there's always sort of a reason why you're trying to buy something that's beyond just like the shiny thing. Right. Like, and it could be very, the reason you might want something could be as simple as just like, I'm feeling sad and buying something might kind of break me out of that. I think that can be a valid reason too. Although, you know, urge you like maybe go to the dollar store instead of, like Gucci or whatever, you know,
right. Like, for sure.
Yeah. So I mean, like, I think that's a useful thing to sort of think about. And like, I'm getting better at like saying no to stuff. I think the thing that's made me more recently be open to that is just the fact that like, if you really wanted any of those games again, for the most part, Noble Knight has 100 copies of it. Right.
Yeah.
Right. And like that's sort of what it comes down to. Like if it turns out like, you know, and you know, when you're dead and gone and your kids are in their, you know, 40s or 50s or something like that, and like, oh man, remember, you know, dad used to have this specific game that I remember playing with him. We loved playing Call of Cthulhu with him. I really want to track down the edition that we played together. around the dinner table or something like that, they can find that. It's going to cost them, like, I mean, inflation adjusted, $100 or whatever.
It'll cost them like $1 trillion.
Yeah, it'll cost them like $1 trillion space bucks, and like they'll have to like ship it from the moon or whatever. But like, it's like all the stuff is still accessible, right? Like, but I think what you're grasping at is like you have these memories associated with it too, right?
Yeah.
So there are some core memories of that stuff that you have from junior high that like those exist regardless if the thing is gone, right? Like there's a minimalism book I read. I think it's called like The Japanese Art of Minimalism. It's something like that, right? But like one of the concepts from that he really brought out, and I'll censor this a little bit. He's like, if this got covered in like sewage, right? Like and I think you've actually had this happen in your life.
Yeah,
like if some of this stuff got covered in sewage, right? Like, would you even bother like washing it, or would you just get rid of it?
Yeah.
Right. And like that can be another useful way of thinking about like how much value is this really bringing me to store this stuff in my house versus just giving it to Noble Knight and then rebuying it later if I need it.
Yeah.
Right. Is like, okay, like is this specific version of this thing so valuable to me that I would, rescue it from a burning building? I would, clean it if it got, sewage on it. I would, like really try to take care of it if something bad happened to it. Or is it really just like, okay, if the monetary value of reselling it to Noble Knight is meaningless, like it's zero, like then why keep it, right?
Yeah,
right. And that's a hard thing. I think that's a hard leap to make, but like I think you can kind of follow it logically.
Yeah,
logically that makes a lot of sense. Oh my goodness, like if I'm not going to replace this thing, and I can, if it got sewage on it, or like I can rebuy it at Noble Knight for $10, like I don't need to store it in my house.
Yeah. I will say the great sewage event, flood event of like 2019 or whatever hellish year it was.
Yeah,
it did take care of some of this problem.
So
I no longer have the White Wolf collection that I did before that.
So there's something to that. Like I've had a couple of traumatic experiences around stuff. Like I had bed bugs like 15 years ago or so, and that really made me just like I'm getting rid of, I did throw away so much of my things at that point. And then we had a basement flood a year or two ago, and like we had to get rid of a ton of stuff that way too. So it's made me more keen to be like, what do we actually need? What do we actually need here? But I think the reality is like when you get down to it, because I've read a bunch about this, I've watched a lot of YouTube videos and stuff. When it comes down to it, it really is just, it's an emotional thing when it gets down to it, right? Like you can have all the fun sort of like, phrases and aphorisms and all that about like what you should do with your stuff, and like, what it means to be a minimalist and all that, like, like how to get rid of things. But like when it comes down to it, like when you pick up that, AD&D 3.5 edition book, and you remember that like, oh, like I loved playing this game with these specific friends, if you have that emotional connection, like that's hard to get rid of, right? It's just hard to get rid of, right? I'm sure 50% of your collection, if you went through that like does it spark joy exercise, you'd quickly be able to get rid of it, right? But like that also just takes a lot to do that. And you're busy, you're working, you've got kids, like you've got, other stuff happening with like this relative, like you've got like, there's all this stuff. Like, so the thought of spending hours a day for the next month, just like holding stuff and like trying to decide if it sparks joy or not, like that is, that's a daunting task. And I don't think you are wrong to feel that's daunting either.
At the same time we were going through this happened at about the same time that, do you remember a little earlier this summer, Sony announced they were going to stop producing physical editions of their video games?
Yeah.
Which is, it's like a hammer blow to like, I mean, this is dumb, but like that was like an emotional piece of news. Like that felt like we are destroying like this legacy of like computer games. So that got me thinking, because next to my collection of like TTRPGs that I never get rid of are some boxes of like video games that I have not gotten rid of. And this goes back. So one of the things we salvaged out of this house, for example, was like my wife's copy of Infocom's Moon Mist.
Nice.
Right? Like we found a little box and it was like, oh, hey, it's your Infocom games you played when you were a kid. So I have some boxes full of stuff like that. I've got a box that has some Infocom games in it. I've got a box that has, my Diablo 1 CD in it, right?
Yeah.
And like just all that stuff. And do you remember maybe, I don't know, whenever GOG or GOG came out selling like old games, you could digitally purchase old games. I started buying everything that they released essentially because everything had this like nostalgic appeal. Oh my gosh, they're releasing, like I can buy a digital copy of Baldur's Gate 1. I can buy a digital copy of whatever, System Shock 2.
Yeah.
All these games that I played when I was a kid. And just so going through this relative's house and hearing this news about like physical copies of video games might no longer be a thing you can like keep and hold on to. It just got me thinking, like, what am I doing with these boxes of like video game CDs from like the 90s? Right? I love a lot of those games. If you were like, Andy, what are your favorite video games of all time? I would be like, oh, Wasteland for the Commodore 64.
Yeah.
System Shock 2 from like 1998. You know, I would say all these epic things. But do you know how many times I've pulled those physical discs out and played them? The answer is 0.
Yeah.
Because to play Wasteland on my Commodore 64, I have a Commodore 64 that like last time I turned it on, I think I burned out all the capacitors because I didn't like check it beforehand.
Yeah.
I've got like a pristine Diablo 1 and its Hellfire expansion pack CD down in my basement. But you know how many computers in my house have disk drives? Like I had to buy a disk drive last year to like when I wanted to start making a Plex server, and I realized like I don't have any way to even access this stuff.
Yeah.
So that's when I started thinking like the value of these things is not that I'm ever actually going to play them again. I'm never going to play Diablo 1 again.
Yeah.
If I ever really wanted to, I could buy a copy online, like a digital copy. I would play it for 3 minutes and be like, yeah, it doesn't hold up. Like, and I would uninstall it and never touch it again. That I'm not belittling, but like I have enormous emotional attachment around like Hexen and Duke Nukem and Quake and Diablo 1. But that connection doesn't like, and I like to think that connection is like somehow embodied by the physical disc I have of Quake in my basement, which I do have. But the reality is I'm never the memory of it like doesn't depend on that physical disc. And if that's the case, like what am I doing with this physical disc, right?
Yeah.
So sorry for the long aside in video games, but it's similar to like TTRPGs. I have like a ton of like second edition AD&D stuff that I played the heck out of, and it has so many memories from like high school and all those like formative years of like being a teenager. And you know what? I'm like basically never going to open one of those books again. And if I did, I would honestly, before I trudged into my basement to try to find the box that like my second edition Maztica source book is in, I'd probably just go to DriveThruRPG and buy it for like $6.
Yeah.
And like use the like PDF copy. So, I mean, sorry about the long rant, but like, I feel like this summer has shaken my belief that like I have these strong emotional and nostalgic ties to stuff, but my belief has been shaken that those ties depend at all on the physical object.
Yes.
So, all right, I'm going to stop talking for a minute. What do you think about all that?
No, I mean, that's good. I mean, yeah, it's like, I think video games is a really, really good thing to look at in this, right? Because like it is trivially easy to find like a bit for bit reproduction of basically any game, right? Because there are already historians, there are already archivists who have gone through and, you know, they have copies of this. Like if you really wanted to, if playing Diablo 1 from the disc was something you really needed to do in 20 years, like there's someone out there who has a way for you to do that.
Yeah.
Right. I'm currently trying to piece together a like little retro video game nook in our basement now. And so like that has involved hanging out on various like Facebook groups that think about and talk about and collect CRT televisions. And it is hilarious to me, and it's something that I think even like the community kind of understands too, like how many of those posts are just obsessed with like the technical details of the TV and like the setup and like, getting new capacitors on it and like, making sure that like the color reproduction is absolutely right, and how a few of those posts are related to actually playing games. Right? Like it's like the acquisition versus the actual like use of the thing is like just they're different hobbies entirely, right? Like, and I think like for you, I'm going to wager a guess, like the collection part of it is an essential part of like the hobby part of it. Like you have, in a way, you've curated a collection over time. Unfortunately, I'm here to tell you that like your curation of that collection is not valuable to any museum, right? It's not valuable to a museum. Like there is a fixed monetary value you could put on it. You could recreate it at any moment with, probably 1,000 clicks, but like mini clicks on a different website. Like there, like you mentioned, you could just get PDFs of so many of these things if you really needed them at the drop of a hat and all that, right? So it's like someone is already archiving it, so it's not like you need to have, like all the AD&D stuff is already, in PDFs like that. Like what's not in there is going to be any of the stuff that's like, if you have your character sheets that your friends and you made, like that sort of stuff is like, absolutely. I think like keep that or take a picture of it, archive it in whatever way makes sense to you.
Yeah.
But for the stuff that's like, it's your copy, your old AD&D modules, it's like, and you're never going to play them again. Like, you know where to find them if you need to. Like let someone else do the warehouse for you, right? Send them off to Noble Knight, give them to, some other nerd who is going to use them, right? Like put them on the swap table, roll for Topicon, like whatever, you need to do like to feel like it's not, not a waste or whatever, but it's like, but it's, it's not serving anyone to have it in the basement. And like you mentioned, at some point it's going to get tossed, whether that's by your kids or their kids. Like it's all just going to go in a dumpster at some point. Right. So if you want to get some value out of it, sell it to someone. If not, you could, burn it. Like if you want to have some sort of like, like ceremony surrounding it too. But like, like that's like the dispassionate look at it too. But like, it is also just hard, right? Like there are definitely books on my shelf that I'm like, I should get rid of this. But every time I pick it up, I'm like, I don't quite want to get rid of it. I put it back. But I will say, I don't know if there's anything I've gotten rid of that I like truly regret. Right. It's like, and like and I think about this often. Like there, I've got a couple of, and I know we've talked about this on the podcast, I've got a few video games that are like, they're like collector's items, right? Like legitimately collector's items. Yeah. And I have offered it to actual museums that like collect video games. They're like, no, we're not interested. We already have a copy. Yeah. And it's like, that is a very sobering thing. It's like, I have this thing that is like, it's valuable if I sell it on eBay. I know there's not a lot of these. I've contacted the people that would want it. And I, told them like, I will just give it to you. You just, say the word and they don't want it. It's like, okay, well, if all those things are true, I'm never going to play this thing. Like, why am I holding on to it? Yeah. Right? Like that is, I think that's like an emotional thing, right? Because like at the end of the day, you're going to die. And like when you are dying, you don't get to take it with you. Right. So it's like, and whatever you believe spiritually, like what happens to you after the fact, you're either annihilated and you don't care about your stuff anymore, or you've ascended to heaven and you don't care about your stuff anymore. Like there's no like afterlife in which you actually care about your stuff. Yeah. Like when it comes down to it.
I don't know. Right? What if you get to heaven and you're like, oh my goodness, like why did I get rid of like my second edition AD&D Birthright collection?
Yes. Right? Yes. Yeah. You get up there and they're like, wait, did you get buried with, like the, module T1? We don't have that.
That's right. Yet. Like, you can't play it up here unless you died with it in your casket.
Yeah. Like in your inventory. Right. It's just like that just isn't like, right. So it's like, and your kids aren't going to have the same emotional connection either. So it's just like, you can spin this out logically, right? And I think like the logical way to approach this, if you really wanted to get rid of your stuff, is just send it all to Noble Knight. They will give you a check for a certain amount of money, or try to sell it locally to get a little bit more money. But like just do that, and then you've got a bunch of bare shelves. You can put potted plants on there, or fill it up with other books or whatever. Get some space back. You move into a smaller house, like whatever you want to do. Like that's the logical way to do it. But like I don't know. Like there's also like I probably will never get rid of my 5th edition starter set. Like, right? Like that's just going to be something I will drag around with me forever, because it has such like an emotional core to it for me. And I think that's okay. Right. Like, you mentioned golf. I always think about golf, like people buy and keep golf clubs, and like that seems ridiculous to me, but it's everybody's got
somewhere
their
there's a golf podcast where someone is having the same existential crisis, by the way. Like, what do I do
about
my
their
golf
clubs, or about golf ball, like I don't know, like golf balls or golf tees, or like I don't know, matchbooks from whatever, right? Like there's all sorts of things that we put like weight into.
When we were going through this house this summer, clearing out my relative stuff, there's a lot of stuff that was really, really painful to say no to, right? Yeah. So here's an example. You come across a relative's like yearbooks from like the 1950s. This is like a person you love. This is like an artifact of history. There's their picture. They look hilariously awesome, right? In their 1950s like student photo. Here's the page of the student club they were in. Isn't that awesome? And yet, if you say yes to all that stuff, you end up keeping everything that's in the house, right? Yes. Because everything that's in the house has that same tug of like, well, but this is the thing he had when this, or like, here's his diploma, or his, whatever. And what I realized is like, I think if we just took a photo of the page with this picture, like what's the value? What do you want to do with this? What you want to do with it is like pull up a picture and be reminded of how fun this person is and how much you love them and how special they are. And then you have some fun particular memory about this thing. You don't need to be holding the yearbook in your hand, right? You just need like the prompt, the reminder of like, wasn't that person special? And to me, that's easy to say and harder to do when I'm actually looking at my stuff from like literal junior high, right? That has like the weight, not only of memory, but decades of nostalgia built onto it that has given it like this heavy presence in my mind, this heavy weight. But like at the end of the day, like what if all I need to do to get all of the joy I need out of this is to see a photo of like a character sheet, right?
Yeah.
Do I need this like box set for that? No, I actually just need the character sheet that has my friend's character in his handwriting that makes me remember all the fun stuff, right? So
yeah, no, it's absolutely true. Yeah, I mean that is like another thing that minimalists will often talk about, right? It's just like, take a picture of anything. Like, and you can just have a digital picture of it, or you can print them out if you want to, right? Like you could probably condense the vast majority of the stuff that you actually care about from your collection down to like a small photo book. Yeah. Right. If it came down to it, or, or a thumb drive or whatever, although, if you're thinking about archiving for a long time, maybe print those guys out. But, it is. Yeah. And like I think that's a noble thing to try to do, right? It's like, just try to distill it. Like, like you mentioned like yearbooks, and I'm like, I've got my yearbooks going back to junior high. Like, I don't want them. My kids are never going to look at them. Yeah. Other than like what you said, they might like flip through and try to see dad's picture.
In my experience, my kids will flip through them only for the purpose of making fun of whatever they find in there. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There will be, definitely, that part of it too. Yeah, but it's just, I don't know. It's like, there's another book that I've read. It's called Die with Zero. It's a little like, I don't know. I've got some quibbles with it, but I think it's generally good. Like the whole idea is that like you have these seasons in life where you can do certain things. If you want to climb, whatever, some mountain, something like that, your window for that is probably quickly, closing on that. Like you will not be able to do that in your 60s or your 70s. Yeah. Most likely. Right. So like, if you want to do that, like, if you want to both climb a mountain and also, go to the opera a bunch of times, like maybe climb the mountain in your 30s and then go to the opera in your 60s. Right. Like, but it also really pushes the idea of really trying to use your money and your resources and stuff to build memories, right? And I think for you, just because we've done this podcast for now, this is our 200th episode, right? So I think I can say this pretty.
Oh my goodness, it is. You're right.
Yeah. At least this is our numbered 200th. I don't know. Like I'm sure we've got like some.
It somehow fits. That our 200th episode would be a dour reflection on the meaninglessness of everything and the inevitability of death. But yes, go ahead.
Yeah. That all makes sense. Like so focusing on experiences. And so I think like with you, I know that the core reason why these hobbies are like part of you, right? Like your gaming hobbies and all this stuff is like, it's not because you really like acquiring stuff, although maybe it's part of that, but like for the most part, like you like doing this because you like being able to share it with other people. Yeah. Right? Like I know this about you, even when it comes to video games, even if you're playing a single player game, you love talking to other people about what that experience is and sharing that and like trying to urge them to play it, right? Like we've we've been part of various groups over the years about like, you know, trying to get other people to play certain games and stuff. And like the same thing with tabletop games, like when you are buying stuff, I'm sure there's an element of like completionism there too, but like there's also just that like, I really want to play this, right? Like there's something about this that I want. The result I want out of this thing is to play this at the table with my friends, with my family, you know, play it at a convention, whatever, right? There's like all the stuff that goes into it, which is you playing it. And I would wager that if someone came in the middle of the night, took all of your role-playing, you know, game books and stuff, you'd replace some of them, but the ones you'd replace would be the ones that are like, oh, I played this campaign with these friends. Yeah. Right. Like, you know, those would be the ones that you'd replace first. It would not be the like, oh my goodness, I really need to get my like whatever, my White Wolf collection, like complete again. Right. It would be like, it'd all be focused on like, oh, like I really enjoyed playing that game. But at the same time, if you didn't get to replace them for whatever reason, you know, it's like you would still have all those memories, right?
Yeah. Exactly,
no one can take that away from you. Yep. Ever. Yeah. And then I think, going forward, games that you'd buy, you'd probably play more likely too, because you don't have all this other cruft behind you of like this huge list of like, oh, there's all these other games I want to play, when, you know, when it's like really just like the result you want is to like go hang out with your friends to play a game. It's like whatever game that is going to be great.
Well, that's a great note to end on. You know, I will say, you know, it is funny now that I am like kind of old, like I can look back at phases of my life and see like, oh yeah, in that phase of my life, I did want to collect a lot of stuff. It was important to me to own every stupid freaking Hunter the Reckoning source book. Right. Yeah. And like, but now I'm like, I hate having this stuff. Like I hate the burden that this physical garbage has. You know, it's not garbage, but this physical stuff has, that's hard, that I am nonetheless having a hard time getting rid of. So, I appreciate your thoughts. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I've got one challenge to you, if you'd be up for it. Is there a game system that you have more than one book of that you are like 1,000% sure you're never going to read or reference or play? Like, can you what's the one like that comes off the top of your head when you're thinking? Well, about it? For me,
the
it's
correct way to word that would be, Andy, do you have more than 15 game systems?
I'm just looking for one right now. Yeah.
I don't think ever in my life I will actually play AD&D second edition again.
Okay.
Having said that, now I'm like, wow, it would be kind of cool to set up a campaign of the second edition AD&D campaign.
I mean, this is the malady that we are all
right.
My recommendation, you can take this or leave this, and maybe I'll just like generally for people who are listening, if you're also doing this exercise in your head, just don't think about it too hard today. Take a 10-minute break, send an email to Noble Knight and say, with a picture that says, I've got these ones, what will you give me for them? Or, you know, box them up and bring them to, you know, the swap table at Roll for Topicon or something like that. Like, just like do it, right? And then like see what they say. And I bet you like taking that first step, you'll be like, oh yeah, like this is not a big deal to get rid of. Or there might be some sort of emotional tug that shows up and like, then listen to that. By all means, and explore it. But
I will do that. Do it. Yeah, I will do that. And feel free to ask me in an episode or two how that turned out. So I'll take a baby step. So, hey, I appreciate talking to you about this. And I appreciate what's funny when you get older is like that there's this like, you start to acquire this like shame for like stuff that you have that you don't need, you know, stuff that you would have boasted about. Like, check out my bookshelf that's like full of like White Wolf source books. Now it's like, oh my gosh, how I have guests coming over. How can I like hide that so like I need to get out of this. This is helpful. And maybe if you're listening, if you've like gone through this, or maybe you're listening to this and you were like, why would you ever get rid of your AD&D second edition books?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we'd like to hear from you. So, yes, but we also need to wrap up this episode. So.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, cool. Well, thank you for bringing that topic. Hopefully I didn't moralize too much at you, but this is definitely something
I need some moralization from people that understand. You know what I mean? Not from people that are like going to sneer at like, how did you wind up with all of these White Wolf Slurps books? But like someone who understands, like there's emotions involved, and that makes doing the obviously correct thing actually kind of difficult, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
All right.
Cool. All right. Well, that does it for us. Yeah. Thanks everybody for listening. Yeah. Please reach out. I mean, I think this is this is our turn of the episode. We love doing this. You know, please reach out. Let us know if you listen. And then, if you have any kind of advice for either of us, tell us we're idiots, or, here's what Andy really needs to do.
That's right. Yeah.
If you want more, Andy in your life, you can go catch him on Zombie Strains with, it's him and John Corey do that podcast together. Otherwise, that does it for us. I've been Chris Salzman.
I've been Andy Rao.
Remember, if your player's having fun, you're a great GM.